A piece of parchment predates the written word itself. This is a map of continents without names, and seas no ship had ever crossed. These 25 ancient maps are not simple drawings. They are direct windows into the minds of our ancestors, revealing how they saw the cosmos, the land, and their own place in it all, long before history was formally written down. By the end of this journey, you will gain a profound ability to see the world through ancient eyes, understanding the brilliant intellectual achievements of cultures lost to time. We will uncover why a volcano was painted beside a village and how a pattern of sticks could navigate an endless ocean. What do you believe is the most important thing a map can show us? But to truly read these maps, we must first learn their language. The phrase before recorded history is not just a date on a timeline. It describes an entirely different way of knowing. For thousands of years, across countless generations, human understanding was not stored in libraries but carried in stories, etched into stone, and woven into ritual. This is the realm of prehistory and protohistory, a time when a map was rarely a guide for getting from one town to another. Instead, it was something far more profound. Think of it as a philosophical statement, drawn on bark or carved into rock. These artifacts were often cosmological diagrams, spiritual blueprints that placed a community at the very center of a living, sacred world. An expert in prehistoric symbolism would tell us that accuracy, in our modern sense, was almost irrelevant. What mattered was meaning. A map from this era charts relationships, the deep connections between people, the spirit world, and the environment they depended upon. This is the foundational key we must carry forward. We are not looking for coastlines drawn to scale. We are deciphering a symbolic language. In this language, a winding river on a stone might not just show a waterway. It could embody a great serpent deity, its path defining the tribe's territory and spiritual identity. A painted mountain range might be depicted as the literal backbone of a creator god, its peaks touching the heavens. To understand these charts is to listen to the ancient conversations they represent, conversations about belonging, power, and humanity's place within a vast and animate cosmos. With this perspective shift in mind, we can now begin our journey with humanity's very first attempts to graphically represent the world itself. The oldest known map in the world is painted on a wall inside a home. At the ancient settlement of Çatalhöyük in what is now Turkey, a community that thrived over 8,000 years ago left us a breathtaking mural. It shows a vivid geometric pattern of rectangles, a clear depiction of their own densely packed honeycomb village. But look above the orderly houses. The artist painted a massive, twin-peaked mountain, identified as Hasan Dogi, and on its slope a dramatic, explosive pattern. To our modern eyes, it looks unmistakably like a volcano erupting. Here is our first profound lesson. This is not a map for navigation. It is a map of identity. The people of Çatalhöyük chose to permanently illustrate two inseparable realities: their human-made world of shelter and community, and the majestic, potentially volatile natural force that watched over them. The volcano was not a distant landmark, it was a central character in their story. Some researchers suggest the speckled pattern could represent flowing lava, a record of a witnessed event. Others see the texture of a leopard skin, linking the mountain to potent animal spirits and ceremonial practices. This beautiful ambiguity is the entire point. For them, the distinction between a geological event and a spiritual manifestation likely did not exist. The mountain was alive, a powerful entity they lived beside and respected. This wall painting, arguably the world's first known map, establishes the core principle we will see again and again. Ancient cartography is about relationship. It charts the deep, narrative connection between a people, their home, and the forces that shape their cosmos. From this Neolithic town anchored by its fiery mountain, our journey leaps across millennia and continents to a map of an entirely different domain, one not of Earth but of stars. A leap across thousands of years and hundreds of miles brings us to a different kind of chart, one that abandoned the earthly landscape entirely. In a forest in what is now Germany, a discovery was made that forever changed our perception of prehistoric European minds. The Nebra Sky Disc, a bronze circle from around 1600 before the Common Era, is inlaid with gold symbols that shimmer against a deep blue-green background. This is not a map of any territory you could walk upon. It is a precise and portable map of the heavens themselves. The gold shapes are unmistakable: a crescent moon, a full circle that may represent a full moon or the sun, and a distinct cluster of 7 stars we know as the Pleiades. Along the disk's edge, graceful arcs are interpreted by researchers as markers for the solstices, the sun's farthest journey north and south each year. This single object reveals an astonishing truth for these ancient sky watchers. Understanding the cosmos was the key to surviving on Earth. An expert in ancient astronomy might describe the disk as a Bronze Age calculator, a physical embodiment of cosmic order. The precise placement of the Pleiades cluster was not decorative. It served as a critical agricultural alarm clock. When this star group appeared in a certain position alongside the crescent moon, it signaled the exact time to begin planting, anchoring the community's entire seasonal rhythm to the reliable clockwork of the sky. This artifact demonstrates a profound, abstract grasp of cyclical time and celestial mechanics, crafted by a society that saw the sky not as a distant void, but as an intimate, interactive map of their lives. It proves that the earliest comprehensive worldviews were, quite literally, views of the world above. Yet if one map could guide the living through the seasons, another would be needed to guide the spirit through an even greater transition. While the Nebra Sky Disc charted the heavens to guide the rhythms of life, another ancient culture crafted a map to navigate the one journey every soul must make alone. Deep within the tombs of Middle Kingdom Egypt, a remarkable guide was painted directly onto the lids of coffins. Known as the Book of the Two Ways, this is not a chart of any desert or river you could see. It is a meticulously detailed roadmap of the Juwat, the Egyptian underworld, a realm of supernatural geography that the spirit of the departed had to traverse. Picture the scene: a priest, under flickering lamplight, carefully inscribing this complex diagram to equip the individual for the ultimate voyage. The map depicts a landscape of profound challenges, with winding paths that fork around lakes of fire and past formidable guardian beings. Its primary purpose was transcendence, a form of ritual technology made visual. To possess this map was believed to grant the soul actual knowledge and safe passage, turning the terrifying unknown into a navigable, if perilous, terrain. What makes this spiritual chart astonishing to modern cartographers is a tiny, revolutionary detail. Within its symbolic rendering of cosmic rivers and barriers, it contains the first known graphic representation of a coastline in human history. This suggests a profound conceptual blending, where the logic of earthly geography, of knowing a shoreline to avoid being lost at sea, was applied to the architecture of the afterlife. The two parallel routes, one by water and one by land, offered the deceased a choice, reflecting an early and profound concept of destiny shaped by one's knowledge and purity. This coffin lid map transforms our understanding of the medium's purpose. Here, cartography becomes an act of profound religious empowerment, a visual spell for providing security and hope in the face of humanity's oldest and most universal question. From this intricate diagram of a metaphysical Nile, we journey to a vast physical ocean where an entirely different kind of map was not drawn at all, but felt in the motion of the waves themselves. The ocean has no roads, no landmarks, and no fixed lines to follow. Yet for centuries, the master navigators of the Marshall Islands embarked on voyages across thousands of miles of open Pacific, guided by maps that no outsider could even see. Their tools were not parchment and ink, but supple coconut fiber and small cowrie shells, lashed together into intricate, web-like frameworks known as stick charts. To our eyes, these artifacts look like abstract sculptures, but to a trained navigator, they were dynamic models of the sea itself. A master would sit in his outrigger canoe, feeling the rhythm of the water through the hull, and consult this mental and physical guide. The shells or knots tied at intersections did not just mark islands, they were focal points for understanding the ocean's living pulse. The carefully arranged sticks represented something invisible to the untrained senses, the complex patterns of swells and currents as they refracted around landmasses. A navigator learned to read how a dominant swell would bend as it approached an atoll, creating a specific, recognizable interference pattern in the water. He would memorize these patterns from the chart, then feel for their unique signatures in the roll and pitch of his canoe. This was a map not of territory, but of relationship, a profound dialogue between human knowledge and environmental force. As a modern Polynesian voyager has explained, the chart is not the territory. It is the relationship between the sailor, the canoe, and the sea. It encoded a sublime understanding of hydrography, passed down through generations without a single written word. This teaches us a radical lesson about cartography. A map can be a set of instructions for feeling your way through the world, a guide to interpreting the whispers of wind and wave. From this fluid, dynamic model of the sea, our exploration turns to something far more solid and enduring, a map not woven from fiber, but carved directly into the living rock of the earth. High on a sun-warmed slab of alpine rock, a valley comes to life in stone. The Bedolina map, carved over 3,000 years ago into a glacial surface in Italy's Val Camonica, presents a scene both familiar and profoundly ancient. From a high vantage point, the artist etched a sprawling network of rectangular fields, winding pathways, clusters of small hut-like structures, and stick-figure people. This is not a symbolic cosmos or a spirit guide, but a detailed, bird's-eye view of a Bronze Age community's entire world. The effect is stunningly direct, as if you are hovering above their world, seeing the organized patterns of their daily labor permanently inscribed into the mountain itself. The scenario is one of a community literally writing its story onto the bedrock, a powerful act of claiming and documenting their territory for all time. But what was the purpose of such a permanent public record? Scholars suggest this petroglyph functioned as a territorial archive. Those interconnected lines could denote boundaries of family land, trace vital irrigation channels for watering crops, or mark communal spaces for gatherings and ceremonial practices. In its intricate web, we see a primitive but brilliant geographic information system, encoding the social and economic relationships of the community directly onto the landscape they depended upon. Unlike the Celestial Disc or the Underworld Guide, the Bedolina map's genius is in its tangible focus. It leans toward a representational cartography of daily life, a map of how they lived, not just where. Its permanence speaks to a deep human desire for legacy. This was a message to the future, a declaration etched in granite saying, "We were here. This is how we shaped our home." It represents a fundamental shift from mapping the spiritual unknown to meticulously recording the known, cultivated world. From this alpine testament to community and place, our journey takes a dramatic turn toward a desert landscape where an entire civilization's world was condensed into a single, enigmatic diagram. The Earth itself can become a calendar. In the rolling hills of what is now Ohio, a quarter-mile-long serpent rises from the ground, not as stone or paint, but as sculpted earth and grass. The Great Serpent Mound is a monumental map you cannot hold, a landscape you must walk to truly understand. Built over 1,000 years ago, this colossal effigy transforms an entire hillside into a sacred diagram, its massive coils perfectly aligned with the summer solstice sunset. To stand before it is to witness a profound act of geomancy, the ancient art of aligning sacred geography with the cosmos. The serpent's undulating body does not merely represent an animal. It is believed to chart the sinuous path of the sun itself or mirror specific constellations like Draco, turning the valley into a giant, three-dimensional astronomical chart. A scholar of indigenous earthworks might describe these mounds as prayers made physical, calendars that permanently tie ceremony and community to the reliable turning of the sky. The construction required a staggering communal investment of labor, moving countless baskets of soil to etch this celestial map onto the continent. This was not art for art's sake, it was a functional, ritual space where cosmology became topography. The serpent's open mouth, aligned with the solstice, may have been a symbolic gateway, swallowing the sun to mark the year's longest day. This teaches us a powerful, tactile lesson. Some maps are not meant to be seen from a distance, but to be felt underfoot and experienced with the whole body, connecting the individual directly to the cosmic cycles they depict. From this walkable serpent of earth and stars, we journey across the world to a map that sought to chart an even more elusive terrain, the intricate pathways of the human spirit. A different kind of map exists entirely within the mind's eye. In the quiet of a monastery, a monk closes his eyes not to see the world, but to envision the entire structure of reality. From the intricate traditions of early Hindu and Buddhist thought emerged cosmographic diagrams of breathtaking complexity, the mandalas and world maps that charted not land but cosmic lore. These are the maps of Lokapurusha and Jambudvipa, where the universe is portrayed as a series of concentric continents, ringed by oceans of salt water, sugarcane juice, wine, and ghee, all revolving around the immovable axis of Mount Meru, the golden pillar of the cosmos. Here, the subordination of physical reality is total. The Earth we know, Jambudvipa, is merely one landmass in an immense, morally ordered system. As a scholar of comparative religion might explain, in these maps, space is karma made visible. Distances are not measured in miles, but in virtues accumulated and lifetimes endured. This is a geography of meaning. Rivers flow with milk or honey. Realms are populated by deities, humans, and other beings, each location corresponding to a state of consciousness or a stage on the path toward liberation. The monk visualizing this mandala is not planning a voyage. He is undertaking the ultimate journey inward, using the map as a profound meditational tool to comprehend his own place within an infinite, cyclical existence. The purpose of this cartography is enlightenment itself, a guide for the soul navigating the vast cycles of rebirth. It represents the absolute pinnacle of symbolic mapping, where every line, every circle, every named realm serves a single philosophical goal: to understand Dharma, the underlying order of all things. From this intricate diagram of a moral universe, we return to a map with a far more immediate and solemn purpose, one designed for a single, definitive journey. The center of the world was a city on a river, at least according to the scholars of Babylon. Etched into a clay tablet in the 6th century before the Common Era, the Imago Mundi, or Babylonian World Map, presents a worldview in a single, circular diagram. Here, the known universe is distilled to its most essential elements. The mighty Euphrates River cuts vertically through the center, with the great city of Babylon itself drawn as a prominent rectangle sitting directly upon it. This is the core, the heart of civilization. Around this central axis, the artist depicted other recognizable regions like Assyria and Urartu, rendered as simple triangles or circles. But then, encircling this entire arrangement, is a labeled ring of water called the Maratu, the bitter river. This is the ocean, the ultimate boundary. Beyond that ring, in the map's outer regions, the inscriptions tell a different story. Here lie places with names like the Land of the Sun, described as a place where no man sees the light, and other distant realms said to be inhabited by fantastical beasts and winged creatures. The scenario is one of a learned scribe sitting in a sunlit courtyard, compiling everything he knew and everything he had heard into one definitive image. He combined the hard, practical geography of trade routes and neighboring kingdoms with the rich tapestry of travelers' tales and ancient myth. This map was likely an administrative and educational tool, a visual aid to teach students about the empire's reach and the cosmological beliefs that placed Babylon at the very center of creation. Its genius lies in this honest blend. It does not pretend the unknown does not exist. Instead, it charts the very edge of knowledge itself, labeling the terra incognita with the only information available: legend. The Imago Mundi establishes a cartographic template that would echo for millennia the idea of the civilized world, ordered and understood, surrounded by water and bounded by the marvelous and the monstrous. It is a powerful declaration of cultural identity, drawing a literal circle around us and them, the familiar and the foreign. From this circular worldview bounded by a bitter river, we set sail for a sea the ancients knew as wine dark, where a different kind of mapmaker sought to bring order to a world of endless coastlines. A pharaoh needed stone, and his scribes drew the way. The Turin Papyrus map, created around 1,150 years before the Common Era for the reign of Ramesses IV, is a stunning departure from the spiritual guides of the Underworld. This is not a map of the soul's journey, but of a very earthly mission, to reach the valuable stone quarries of the Wadi Hammamat in Egypt's eastern desert. Unrolled in an administrative chamber, this detailed scroll reveals a landscape of practical necessity, drawn with a clarity that feels almost modern. It charts a route through a harsh, dry world of winding wadis, distinctive flat-topped hills, and small mining settlements. The annotations, written in the efficient hieratic script, are not prayers but precise notes describing the quality of the Beckhan stone found there and even noting deposits of gold. The scenario is one of meticulous state planning, a bureaucrat mapping assets for the crown. Here, the purpose of cartography is not spiritual transcendence, but control and extraction, a tool for turning geography into economic power. Its significance is profound. This papyrus shatters any lingering idea that ancient maps were solely symbolic or cosmological. It reveals a parallel, sophisticated tradition of practical draftsmanship born from the needs of a complex administration. Distances are estimated, landmarks are carefully rendered for identification, and the geology itself is a subject of interest. This is, in essence, the world's earliest known surviving geological and topographic survey map. It shows us that alongside the star charts and serpent mounds, there existed a clear-eyed cartography of resource management, proving that the drive to document and dominate the material world is just as ancient as the desire to map the heavens. From this detailed ledger of desert stone, our exploration now turns to a map that sought to document an entirely different kind of treasure, one woven from the threads of epic myth. The empire was a road, and the road was a map. Unrolled across a table in a medieval scriptorium, the Putinger table is a breathtakingly strange document, a 13th-century copy of a Roman itinerary that stretches the known world into a long, narrow ribbon. From Britain's misty shores all the way to the Ganges River in India, this map is not concerned with shapes or coastlines. Its purpose is pure motion. Imagine a Roman official, his fingers tracing a painted line across the parchment, planning a journey of 1,000 miles. He is not looking for a realistic depiction of a mountain range. He is searching for the next mansio, the next way station where he can change his weary horse, find a meal, and rest for the night. The geography here is ruthlessly distorted. elongated to fit the logic of the scroll and the road. The Mediterranean Sea is reduced to a thin, wiggling strip of blue, more like a river separating lines of text. Towns are not dots, but charming little illustrated buildings, each vignette a visual landmark in a sea of names and numbers. This is the empire mapped not as land, but as a system of control, a vast administrative machine made visible. Every carefully measured Roman mile between stations is a testament to the engineering and bureaucratic genius that held the ancient world together. As one scholar of the classical world puts it, this chart maps the empire not as territory, but as a network of movement and power. Its brilliance is in its focused utility. It includes everything the traveler needs, marking temples for prayers, baths for refreshment, and even legendary sites like the distant shrine of Jupiter Ammon in the Libyan desert, blending hard logistical data with the allure of myth. The Peutingers table is the ultimate roadmap, a diagram of imperial connectivity that turns a daunting journey across continents into a simple, linear checklist. It reveals a world where distance was not measured in empty space, but in practical steps, in stops and starts along a paved path of authority. And as those Roman roads stretched eastward, they eventually merged with other, older paths of exchange, weaving into a web of commerce and culture far beyond the legion's reach. The desert wind whispers through the Mogao caves, but inside, a different kind of permanence was being secured. Among the vast library of manuscripts sealed for a millennium, a single scroll from the Tang dynasty, around the year 700 of the Common Era, presents a vision of breathtaking order. The Dunhuang Star Map is not a symbolic mandala, but a precise, data-driven chart of the cosmos, plotting over 1,300 individual stars across the entire night sky. Imagine the hands that created it, likely those of a Buddhist monk or court astronomer in that remote oasis, dipping his brush in ink to transfer generations of observational knowledge onto paper. This was a working tool, a fusion of science and spirituality drawn with a technical sophistication that feels startlingly modern. It employs three distinct graphical projections to map the heavens, a complex cartographic technique that reveals an advanced, mathematical understanding of translating a spherical sky onto a flat surface. This meticulous document was not merely for contemplation. It served the urgent, practical needs of the Silk Road. It provided the celestial clock needed to calculate the calendar for planting and harvests, to cast astrological charts for imperial decisions, and to navigate the vast, featureless deserts by night. Its genius, however, lies in its origins. The constellations and data it records represent a profound synthesis, weaving together Chinese astronomical tradition with knowledge absorbed from Indian and even Hellenistic sources flowing along those same trade routes. Here in a silent cave, we see the Silk Road not just as a path for silk and spices, but as a highway for ideas where the universal human quest to understand the stars created a truly global science. This map reminds us that charting the heavens was never a purely abstract pursuit. It was the essential infrastructure that synchronized spiritual ceremonies with the seasons and guided both caravans and kingdoms. Yet if one map could unite cultures under a shared sky, another would soon be drawn to divide the earth under rival claims. Silk could hold an empire. Sealed within a noble tomb at Mawangdui in 168 before the Common Era, three maps painted on silk survived the centuries, not as cosmic diagrams, but as instruments of earthly power. This was no spiritual guide for the afterlife. It was a bureaucratic toolkit for eternity. The Han Dynasty official buried here chose to take with him the very documents that defined his authority: a topographic survey of a southern commandery, a precise military garrison map, and a detailed chart of his family's estates. Unrolled, these silks reveal a cartographic vision of breathtaking precision and cold utility. Here are measured roads drawn to scale, connecting administrative centers. Here are symbols marking mountain passes, river fords, and the locations of watchtowers. The garrison map is particularly striking, using a grid of uniform rectangles to systematically plot the positions of units, a clear precursor to the modern coordinate system. An expert in early Chinese science would describe this as a quantum leap in technical thought. These are not artistic impressions, they are state-of-the-art tools for governance, warfare, and taxation. They visualize control. Every line on the silk serves a central purpose to allow the state to see its domain, manage its resources, and project its military might with unprecedented efficiency. This represents a fundamental shift in the purpose of mapping, from interpreting a sacred world to administering a conquered one. The mythical circles and symbolic rivers of earlier worldviews are entirely absent, replaced by the clean, pragmatic lines of administration. The Mawangdui maps tell us that by the 2nd century before the Common Era, cartography had become a primary technology of empire, a way to make territory legible and therefore governable from a palace thousands of miles away. From these ordered silk grids of imperial China, our journey takes a dramatic turn toward a landscape where mapping followed an entirely different logic, one not of right angles but of living memory and sacred pathways. A map can be a memory tied in knots and walked in ritual. Across the vast, mountainous spine of the Andes, the Inca Empire mastered a form of cartography that required no parchment at all. Their capital, Cusco, was not just a city but a living diagram organized by the Sec system. Picture 41 invisible lines like sacred spokes on a wheel, radiating outward from the golden Coricancha, the temple of the sun at the city's heart. Each line was a precise trajectory across the mind and the land, connecting to hundreds of huacas, specific natural shrines like springs, boulders, or mountain peaks that dotted the surrounding landscape. This was a conceptual map of staggering complexity, etched not on paper but into the very ritual life of the empire. A designated line might be assigned to a particular royal lineage, its associated huacas marking the dates and locations for their specific ceremonies throughout the year. The Sec system thus wove together astronomy, the calendar, social structure, and hydrology into a single, four-dimensional model of Inca cosmology and control. But how do you record the data for such a system? You tie knots. The quipu, a bundle of intricately knotted cords of various colors, was the empire's database. A skilled quipukamayok, a keeper of the knots, could run his fingers along these strings and recite census numbers, tribute records, or even historical narratives. The type of knot, its position on the cord, and the color of the string all held specific meanings. One scholar of Andean cultures describes it perfectly. The landscape itself was the map, and the quipu was its database. The scenario is one of profound integration. A priest-accountant consulting a knotted chronicle to know which family group was to make an offering at which distant shrine on the next full moon. This system challenges everything we assume about maps. It shows us that sophisticated cartography can be non-graphic, performed through ceremony, movement, and tactile memory. It teaches that a map is not always an object you look at, but a set of relationships you enact and remember, turning an entire territory into a sacred, mnemonic landscape. From this high-altitude empire of knots and lines, we set sail for a very different world of exploration, where mapmakers confronted not mountains, but a vast and empty ocean. A saga was a map you could hear by the firelight. Across the stormy North Atlantic, the Norse explorers of the 9th to 11th centuries charted their world not with parchment, but with poetry and stone. They left no traditional charts behind, yet their geographic knowledge was vast and precise, meticulously encoded within the epic oral traditions known as the sagas. Picture a scene in a smoky longhouse, a skald's voice rising and falling with the rhythm of the waves as he recites the saga of the Greenlanders. His words are not just entertainment, they are vital navigation data transformed into memorable story. He describes the sailing directions from Norway to a place called Vinland, a land far to the west we now know as North America. His directions rely not on latitudes but on lived experience. He speaks of following a certain current for a set number of days, of watching for specific seabirds that signal land is near, and of recognizing distinctive coastal features like a beach of extraordinary length or a forested promontory. This was oral cartography, a brilliant system where critical survival information was embedded in the very structure of narrative, making it impossible to forget. The saga itself became a living, breathable map passed from one generation of sailors to the next. This narrative knowledge was sometimes made permanent in stone. Rune stones, like the enigmatic Kingatorsuaq stone found on a remote Greenland islet, bear cryptic runic inscriptions that scholars believe may have served as navigational markers, territorial claims, or memorials for those who ventured into the unknown. A simple phrase carved into rock could assert, "We were here, this route is known." Together, the sagas and the rune stones reveal a profound truth about human adaptation. In the absence of writing, geography becomes story. The harsh, fog-shrouded seas demanded not just bravery, but an intimate, experiential wisdom, the ability to read the language of whales, the color of the water, and the shape of the clouds. The Norse did not just sail into the unknown, they sang their way across it, turning the terrifying void of the ocean into a sequenced story of landmarks and discoveries. This tradition shows that the most durable maps are sometimes those held not in the hand, but in the memory, woven into the very fabric of a culture's identity. From the frigid, story-filled waters of the North Atlantic, our exploration sails toward the warm, stone-carved landscapes of Mesoamerica. The deerskin holds a world in perfect, terrifying balance. In the vibrant codices of the Aztec or Mexica people, such as the Codex Fejevari Maya, we encounter maps where geometry becomes a divine order. A master Tlacuilo, a scribe painter, would have mixed his pigments with a sense of profound duty, for he was not illustrating a territory but painting the very blueprint of existence. One iconic page presents the cosmos as a stark, symmetrical square, its four quarters radiating from a central fire. Each quadrant is governed by a specific deity, a color, a sacred tree, and a direction, all anchored by the fire god Zu-Tecutli at the very heart. This center was not an abstract point, it was the island city of Tenochtitlan itself, the axis mundi of the Aztec world. But the true genius of this cartography lies in its dimension of time. The diagram is also a meticulous calendar, interweaving the 260-day sacred cycle with the spatial directions. Every single day had a name, a patron force, and an associated destiny tied to a cardinal point. To consult this codex was to navigate a landscape where space and time were fused. A priest would use it for divination, to determine the auspicious moments for planting, for going to war, or for conducting a ceremony, all to maintain the precarious balance of cosmic forces. As a scholar of Mesoamerica observes, to read this is to navigate a landscape of time where direction, deity, and destiny are inseparable. This map provided the ultimate theological justification for the empire. Its expansion was not mere conquest, but a sacred duty to sustain the cosmos from its rightful center. In this system, geography was literally destiny, a daily ritual enacted to keep the sun rising and the world from collapsing into chaos. It represents one of history's most intricate symbolic systems, where a painted square on bark paper could contain the logic of an entire civilization. From this New World diagram of divine order, we cross back to the Old World, to a map that sought to impose a different kind of order upon the earth, one born not from gods but from pure mathematics. The earth was a perfect disk floating in an infinite void. This was the revolutionary vision of Anaximander, a thinker from Miletus in the 6th century before the Common Era, who dared to redraw the world not from myth but from pure reason. His map, now lost to time but described by later writers, replaced divine creatures at the edges of the world with a single, elegant geometric principle. He depicted the known lands of Europe, Asia, and Libya as a circular landmass, a perfect disk surrounded entirely by the great river Oceanus. At its very center, he did not place a whimsical god, but a specific, revered stone, the Omphalos at Delphi, believed to be the navel of the world. The scenario is one of intense debate among Ionian philosophers, sitting in a sunlit colonnade, arguing over the latest reports from Phoenician sailors, and using compasses to draw perfect circles on wax tablets. They were applying a new tool, logic, to the oldest of questions: what is the shape of our home? This was a profound leap from mythos, the world of story, toward logos, the world of reason principle. Anaximander's map was wildly speculative, of course, but its power was not in its accuracy. Its power was in its method. For the first time in the Western tradition, the inhabited world, the oikoumene, was presented as a coherent system that could, in theory, be understood through observation, symmetry, and deduction. It moved geography from the realm of priests and poets into the hands of philosophers. This intellectual shift planted the crucial seed. By daring to imagine the Earth as a geometric shape, these early Greek thinkers created the essential conceptual framework that would, centuries later, allow a genius like Eratosthenes to not just draw the world, but to measure it, calculating the planet's circumference with stunning precision using little more than shadows, wells, and brilliant reasoning. The journey from Anaximander's symbolic disk to Ptolemy's coordinate grid was a direct line of inquiry, a testament to the idea that the universe operates by rules we can discover. This phase captures the very moment cartography became a science, a tool for asking how the world works, not just who controls it. The world was a perfect circle of faith. In the quiet, candlelit scriptoriums of medieval Europe, a map of profound simplicity and immense power was drawn again and again. Known as the TO map, its design was stark, a single circle representing the entire world divided by a T shape. This T was not made of roads but of sacred waters, the vertical stem being the Mediterranean Sea, and the horizontal bar formed by the rivers Don and Nile. This schematic created 3 continents, with Asia occupying the entire top half, a place of spiritual priority, while Europe and Africa shared the bottom quarters. The scenario is one of a monk, his quill scratching on vellum, creating this diagram not for a sailor, but for a student of scripture. He would place Jerusalem at the very center of the circle, the spiritual heart of creation, and often inscribe the word paradise at the top, in the east, the direction of the rising sun and divine origin. The purpose here is absolute. This is not a guide to lands, but a diagram of doctrine. It visually encoded the entire Christian worldview, from the Garden of Eden to the known habitations of Noah's sons. As a scholar of the medieval mind notes, it maps faith, not fact. It is a mnemonic for salvation history. For centuries, this schematic dominated the European imagination, a powerful reminder that a map can be an act of devotion, reflecting not the messy, unexplored contours of the earth, but the clean, authoritative order of belief. It shows us how a powerful ideological lens can flatten a complex world into a symbol, prioritizing spiritual truth over physical discovery. This map of theological certainty would, however, soon face a challenge from a document born not from doctrine, but from direct experience and cultural exchange on the very edges of the known world. A world map could be an encyclopedia of all known lands. In the royal court of Korea, in the year 1402, scholars completed a staggering cartographic synthesis, the Honil Gangni Yokti Gukdo Jai Du, known as the Kangnido map. Unrolling this scroll was to witness a medieval mind attempting to hold the entire known world in a single, breathtaking gaze. Its creation was a direct product of the Silk Road's intellectual traffic, weaving together geographic data from Chinese administrative surveys, Korean maritime charts, Islamic world maps brought by Persian traders, and even fragments of European knowledge. The scenario is one of immense scholarly ambition, a team of cartographers in Seoul comparing notes from scrolls that had traveled thousands of miles, deciding how to fit the reports of Arab merchants and the charts of Chinese admirals into one coherent picture. The result is a fascinating, sometimes bewildering panorama. True to its Chinese sources, the Middle Kingdom sits imposingly at the center, with Korea and Japan rendered in respectful detail to the east. But then the viewer's eye travels west, and the map reveals its revolutionary scope. The Arabian Peninsula is clearly recognizable, a distinctive shape floating in a labeled sea. Africa, though still connected to Asia, is shown with a southern coastline that hints at a continent, not just an endless southern land. Most astonishingly, in the far northwest, a small landmass is labeled the Land of Franks, a direct reference to Western Europe. This was not a perfect or proportionally accurate map. Distances were compressed, and the Mediterranean Sea is a mere sliver. Yet its genius lies in its encyclopedic intent. It was not drawn for navigation or conquest, but for comprehensive understanding, a visual archive of every place name, every capital city, every major river system that the interconnected civilizations of Eurasia had recorded. This map represents a pinnacle of pre-modern global curiosity, a snapshot of all the world that mattered to the learned elite of Asia on the eve of a great disruption. Within a century, European caravels would begin sailing around that African coastline, shattering the very synthesis the Cognido so carefully constructed. It stands as a beautiful, fragile testament to a moment when the world was still understood as a mosaic of shared, terrestrial knowledge, soon to be torn apart and redrawn by the age of exploration. From this terrestrial encyclopedia compiled from Silk Road whispers, we now lift our eyes to a map that sought perfect order not in the chaos of continents, but in the flawless geometry of the stars themselves. A brass disc could hold the entire turning sky in your hand. The ancient astrolabe, perfected by Islamic scholars from earlier Greek and Persian designs, is not a map you look at, but a map you operate. Picture an astronomer on a darkened rooftop, the cool metal of the instrument resting in his palm. He suspends it by a ring, aligning the sighting rule with a bright star. By rotating the intricately pierced retere, a star chart cut from metal, over a chosen latitude plate, he solves a cosmic puzzle. This single device could tell the hour of the night, predict when a constellation would rise, or find the direction to Mecca for prayer. It was a portable, analog computer crafted from celestial knowledge. Each etched timpan plate was a customized flat projection of the heavens for a specific city, a mathematical translation of the spherical sky onto a workable disk. An armillary sphere, with its nested rings representing celestial circles, served a similar purpose as a three-dimensional teaching model, a skeleton of the cosmos. A historian of science would call these the ultimate applied maps, where geometry became a tool for living in time and space. They represent the magnificent culmination of a millennia-long journey, from painting stars on cave walls to forging them into a precise, interactive instrument. This was celestial cartography made tactile, turning the abstract patterns of the night into a practical guide for navigation, worship, and understanding. The universe was no longer just a story to be told, but a magnificent clockwork to be measured and used. With this profound shift from symbolic chart to precise instrument fresh in our minds, we cross the ocean one final time to witness a Native American map that masterfully blended both of those worlds, the spiritual and the territorial, into one stunning document. A pyramid's shadow is a line on the most important map a Maya king would ever read. Across the vibrant lowlands of Mesoamerica, from roughly 250 to 900 of the Common Era, The Maya did not merely build cities, they constructed vast, three-dimensional calendars and cosmic diagrams in stone. Their urban planning was an act of high cartography, aligning towering pyramids, broad plazas, and elevated causeways with the precise movements of the sun, the moon, and the planet Venus. This was a map you could not hold in your hand. You had to walk its avenues and climb its steps to understand it. Envision a priest-king during the height of the classic period, his elaborate headdress glittering in the dawn light as he ascends the steep staircase of a pyramid specifically engineered for a solar event. On the day of a solstice or equinox, the structure's architecture interacts with the sunlight to cast a dramatic, creeping shadow or illuminate a particular carving, a public, undeniable demonstration that the ruler was in sync with the celestial order. His city itself was a microcosm, a ritual landscape where every major structure held a place in a grand, symbolic replica of the Maya universe. The world was layered with the heavens above, the mortal plane in the middle, and a watery underworld called Xibalba below. Caves were seen as sacred portals into that underworld, while pyramids represented sacred mountains, the homes of gods and ancestors. To move through the city was to navigate a living model of this cosmos. This profound integration of space and belief is also captured in their painted books like the famed Dresden Codex. Its pages are filled with complex almanacs, but these are not simple lists. They are intricate ritual maps for divination. A single page might show a deity associated with rain, seated in a specific spatial arrangement relative to symbols for crops and numbered days. A priest scribe would consult this layout to determine the most auspicious time for planting or to perform ceremonies to summon the rains, literally using the codex as a guide to navigate the relationship between time, divine forces, and agricultural need. The mathematics involved were staggering, tracking cycles of hundreds of thousands of years with a precision that stuns modern astronomers. Their mapping was holistic, a seamless weave of astronomy, a sacred calendar, and urban design. For the Maya, the most critical geography was not of political borders, but of spiritual and temporal alignment. Their maps were not reference tools kept on a shelf. They were the very stages upon which the drama of life, kingship, and communion with the gods was performed daily. This teaches us a radical concept that the most important map a culture can possess is the one they inhabit, the landscape they ritually enact to maintain harmony between heaven and earth. From these monumental stone calendars of Mesoamerica, we voyage to the vast Pacific, where another ancient culture mastered a form of navigation so intuitive it was felt in the body before it was seen with the eyes. The land itself can be sung into being. For the Aboriginal peoples of Australia, the most accurate and sacred maps of the continent were never drawn on any surface. They were carried for tens of thousands of years in memory and given life through performance. These are the songlines or dreaming tracks, intricate pathways that crisscross the entire landscape, charting the epic journeys of ancestral beings during the foundational era known as the dreaming. In this tradition, geography is not separate from story, law, or identity. It is woven directly into them. The scenario is one of profound continuity, an elder walking slowly across red earth, his voice rising and falling in a complex song cycle. Each verse, each rhythmic phrase is not merely a lyric, it is a precise navigational instruction and a creation myth fused into one. He sings of a specific rock formation, and there it is, a testament to the ancestors' action. He chants the name of a hidden waterhole, and the song becomes a vital survival guide, preserving ecological knowledge across generations. The song is the map, and the ceremony is the act of reading it. This represents the ultimate expression of sustainable cartography. A songline encodes everything a community needs to know: the locations of resources, the boundaries of traditional lands, the stories of origin, and the legal and ethical codes for living in balance with the environment. It is a living, breathing atlas that requires no paper, only participation and respect. To walk a songline is to literally trace the footsteps of creation, to reanimate the land story with your own movement and breath. This challenges every modern assumption we hold about mapping. It proves that a map can be temporal and ephemeral, existing fully only in the moment of its performance, yet also eternal, etched into the very consciousness of a culture and the features of the continent itself. It is a reminder that before we ever sought to dominate territory, we first learned to listen to its story and sing it back. From this ancient, melodic navigation of a living landscape, our focus shifts to a map of staggering ambition from the ancient world, one that sought not to sing the earth, but to systematically catalogue every piece of knowledge the Roman Empire had accumulated. Faith could be walked upon in vibrant, enduring color. In the floor of St. George's Church in Madaba, Jordan, pilgrims for over 14 centuries have literally trodden across a map of their sacred world. Created in the 6th century of the Common Era, the Madaba Mosaic Map is the oldest surviving geographic floor mosaic on Earth, a breathtaking fusion of art, devotion, and classical knowledge. Imagine the experience of a Byzantine Christian entering that sacred space, their eyes drawn downward to a sprawling, colorful panorama stretching from Lebanon in the north all the way to the Nile Delta in Egypt. This was not a scroll to be studied in private, but a public, communal canvas underfoot, making the connection between belief and place utterly tangible. The map's design is a profound theological statement in itself. Jerusalem is not merely included, it is dramatically enlarged, depicted in meticulous detail with its city walls, gates, and major churches, including the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, dominating the center of the composition. This visual hierarchy made a powerful point. The Holy City was the spiritual and geographic heart of this landscape, the axis around which the entire biblical narrative revolved. Yet for all its symbolic focus, the map is also remarkably practical. It functions as an illustrated pilgrim's guide. A traveler could locate Jericho by its cluster of palm trees, identify the Dead Sea by the tiny boats depicted upon it, and even find a notation marking the traditional site where Lot's wife was transformed. These vignettes turn geography into story, allowing the faithful to visually walk the paths of Scripture. The mosaic's very medium speaks to its purpose. Made of thousands of stone tesserae, it was built to last, to be walked upon by generations, embedding the sacred geography directly into the ritual life of the community. While created just after the Classical Age, it stands as a monumental summary of a late antique worldview, one that seamlessly blended the fading techniques of Roman cartography with the burgeoning iconography of the Christian faith. It represents a final, glorious flowering of a tradition where a map was not just a tool for the body, but a guide for the soul, anchoring the cosmic story of salvation to the very dust and stone of the Middle East. From this warm, sunlit floor of colored stone guiding Mediterranean pilgrims, our journey turns toward a colder, darker landscape where maps were drawn not to guide the living, but to chart the terrifying journey awaiting every soul in the frozen north. The drum's skin was a portal to another world. For the shamanic traditions across the vast Siberian taiga, the most vital map was not of land but of layered reality, painted directly onto the hide of a ceremonial drum. These instruments were far more than musical objects. They were functional cosmographies, detailed charts of a universe divided into 3 interconnected realms. The upper world of celestial spirits, the middle world of humans and animals, and a lower world of ancestors and powerful forces were all depicted in symbolic form, connected by a central axis often shown as a world tree or a sacred mountain. This was the landscape the shaman needed to traverse. The scenario unfolds in the flickering light of a hearth within a reindeer skin tent. The shaman begins a steady, rhythmic beat, their eyes fixed on the painted diagram. As the tempo carries them into an altered state of consciousness, the map on the drum ceases to be a static image. It becomes a living terrain. Each depicted spirit animal, each drawn river of the underworld, transforms into a landmark for a journey the shaman's soul must undertake. This was cartography as spiritual technology, a guide for navigating the non-physical geography of illness, loss, and communion. The map provided the route for a healer to search for a wandering soul believed to be the cause of an ailment, or to travel downward to consult with ancestral guides for wisdom. It represents perhaps the most intimate purpose of mapping we have encountered, the charting of the invisible interior, the psychological and spiritual realms that ancient cultures understood as being just as real as any mountain or sea. These drum maps reveal a profound truth. The human drive to create order through mapping applies universally to every form of experience we can conceive. Whether facing a vast ocean or the depths of the spirit, we instinctively reach for a diagram to find our way. This impulse brings us to the final, and perhaps most mysterious, artifacts in our exploration, maps that seem to defy the very timeline of history as we know it. A single line of ink could rewrite the story of a continent. In 1965, the world of cartographic history was electrified by the announcement of the Vinland Map. This seemingly unassuming parchment, drawn in a medieval style, depicted Europe, Africa, and Asia. But in the distant northwest beyond Greenland, it showed a large, unfamiliar island labeled in Latin as Vinlandia Insula, a land of vines. According to its accompanying text, it was a copy of a map drawn in the mid-13th century, which would mean it recorded Norse knowledge of North America over 250 years before Columbus. The scenario this created was not one of ancient discovery, but of a modern intellectual thriller. Scholars, chemists, and historians descended into a fierce debate that continues to this day. The map's supporters pointed to its stylistic consistency with other medieval works and the compelling correlation with the saga accounts of Leif Erikson. Its detractors launched a forensic investigation focusing on the very substance of the document. Advanced analysis of the ink revealed traces of a titanium compound, anatase, which was not commercially used in pigments until the 1920s. This finding suggested a 20th century forgery, a clever fabrication designed to capitalize on the romantic notion of pre-Columbian discovery. Yet, even this evidence has been contested, with some researchers arguing the compound could be a result of medieval ink preparation or later contamination. The debate itself is the map's true legacy. Whether it is a genuine medieval relic or an exquisite modern fake, the Vinland Map holds a mirror to our own desires. It represents the ultimate cartographic smoking gun, an artifact with the power to topple entrenched historical narratives with a single stroke of the pen. This forces a profound question: how much of our fascination is with the truth of the past, and how much is with the story we wish the past would tell? The map's controversy serves as a masterclass in caution. It reminds us that ancient documents do not speak for themselves. We interpret them through our own hopes, technologies, and biases. A map can be a forger's canvas as easily as an explorer's chart, becoming a powerful actor in modern historical drama, shaping academic careers, museum exhibitions, and public belief. Its enduring mystery teaches that sometimes the most significant thing a map reveals is not a forgotten coastline, but the complex landscape of our own scholarly passions and the eternal human temptation to find what we are looking for. From this contentious parchment that sits between fraud and revelation, we reach back beyond all written records to our final and most abstract ancient map. Stone was a calendar and the horizon was its dial. The 25th and final map in our journey is not an artifact you can hold, but a landscape you must stand within. The colossal stone rings of Stonehenge on England's Salisbury Plain and the endless, marching rows of menhirs at Carnac in France are not merely monuments, They are megalithic observatories, vast maps carved directly into the earth itself. These are not symbolic representations, they are functional instruments of stone and sky. Each massive pillar, each carefully placed lintel, acts as a permanent marker, creating precise sightlines to celestial events. The scenario is one of profound communal anticipation. At dawn on the summer solstice, hundreds would gather at Stonehenge, their eyes fixed on the heel stone. As the first sliver of the sun broke the horizon, its light would pierce the center of the stone circle, flooding the altar stone with a golden beam. That moment was the map being read. The alignment confirmed the turning of the year, the reliability of the cosmos, and the community's sacred contract with the forces that governed their survival. At Karnak, the scale is even more staggering, with thousands of stones arranged in parallel rows stretching for miles, their orientations also tied to the movements of the sun and moon. The key to understanding these sites is permanence. By using stones that weigh tens of tons, these ancient builders were fixing their celestial maps onto the landscape with a finality meant to outlast generations. They were converting ephemeral astronomical knowledge into immutable architecture. An expert in archaeoastronomy might describe these places as the ultimate interface, where the map, the arrangement of stones, and the territory, the sky itself, interact directly. There is no parchment between the observer and the observed. This represents a collective investment of labor and vision that is almost unimaginable, a society's entire effort to anchor time and cosmic order into the very bedrock. These stone maps governed planting, harvest, ceremony, and myth for centuries, creating a sacred geography that was both a calendar and a cathedral. They bring our exploration of 25 ancient maps to a powerful close, not with a scroll or a disc, but with a temple open to the heavens. Having journeyed from painted caves to star discs, from silk grids to songlines, and now to these rings of stone, a single, unifying thread emerges from across the millennia. Every one of these maps, in its own way, is an attempt to answer the same fundamental human questions: where are we, when are we, and what is our place within the grand scheme of things? These common threads weave a single, profound revelation about our species. Ancient maps were never just about location, they were about orientation in every sense of the word. They oriented a community within the cosmos, anchored a ruler's power in the landscape, and gave tangible form to the deepest questions of existence. This is their first unifying theme, the drive to impose a meaningful order upon the overwhelming complexity of reality. Whether facing the trackless ocean or the mystery of death, humans have consistently reached for cartography, not to simply describe the world, but to define it, to carve out a place of understanding from the vast unknown. The chaos they sought to order was not always wilderness. It could be social chaos, the need to allocate land and resources, or the spiritual chaos of an unpredictable universe. Every line drawn, from the sacred geometry of a mandala to the property grids on hand silk, was an act of world building. This leads directly to the second theme, the beautiful impossibility of separating these maps into modern categories. We think of art, science, religion, and politics as distinct fields, but in these artifacts, they are fused into a single intellectual endeavor. A Babylonian world map is a theological statement about the center of creation and a political tool for imperial education. The Nebra Sky Disc is a precise scientific instrument for tracking seasons and a sacred object depicting divine bodies. The songlines are legal documents defining territory, ecological databases for survival, and profound spiritual narratives. To ask whether the Great Serpent Mound is art, astronomy, or religion is to ask the wrong question. It is all of these at once, a testament to a holistic way of knowing that modern thought has often fragmented. These maps remind us that our ancestors did not compartmentalize their understanding. They synthesized it into a coherent, lived experience. And what does this synthesis tell us about truth? Our third theme challenges our most basic assumption about maps, that their value lies in topographic accuracy. For the cultures that made them, accuracy was measured by a completely different standard. A map was true if it correctly represented the relationships that mattered. Was the relationship between the king and the gods properly shown? Did the diagram effectively guide the soul to the afterlife? Did the chant recall the location of water in the desert? If the answer was yes, the map was successful, regardless of whether a coastline was perfectly scaled. The TO map, with Jerusalem at the center of a circular world, is not a failed attempt at geography. It is a perfect success at depicting a medieval Christian worldview. Its truth was theological, not terrestrial. This relativism is not a weakness, it is a key to empathy. It allows us to see these not as primitive errors, but as sophisticated expressions of different realities. This brings us to the fourth, deeply human theme, the irresistible urge to externalize our inner worlds. We are creatures who need to make our thoughts concrete, to take the mental models in our heads and give them a form others can see, touch, or hear. The stick chart is a physical model of a sailor's mental swell pattern. The quipu is a tactile record of census data and stories. The sex system turns an empire's social and ritual structure into a walkable diagram. This externalization is the very engine of shared culture and cumulative knowledge. It transforms private insight into public utility, allowing understanding to be stored, taught, and refined across generations. It is the bridge between an individual's perception and a civilization's memory. Finally, these artifacts are monuments to adaptive ingenuity, a fifth theme of resourcefulness. Lacking paper, a culture used knotted cords. Without metal, they arranged tons of stone. Denied a written script, they composed epic songs. They mapped with what they had, painting on cave walls, etching into clay, weaving with fiber, and aligning entire landscapes. This material creativity underscores a vital point. The sophistication of thought is not dependent on the complexity of the technology. A profound understanding of celestial mechanics was achieved with bronze and gold inlay. A mastery of oceanography was encoded in palm fronds and memory. The medium was not a limitation, it was an integral part of the message, chosen from the very environment it sought to explain. So why does this ancient impulse matter to us now, in an age of satellite imagery and digital GPS? Because we are still doing the exact same thing. Every time we create a data visualization, draw an organizational chart, or build a virtual reality model, we are engaging in the same foundational act. We are making an abstract mental model tangible to navigate a complex reality. Our maps have changed in form and precision, but their core functions to order, to synthesize, to express our truth, to externalize understanding, and to use available tools remain unchanged. The Polynesian navigator feeling the ocean's pulse and the software engineer mapping a social network are connected by this timeless human need to chart the unknown. These 25 ancient maps are not relics of a primitive past. They are mirrors reflecting the enduring architecture of the human mind, proving that long before we could write our history, we were already drawing our world into being. The legacy of these 25 maps is etched not in fading ink, but in the very architecture of how we think. Our voyage reveals that long before satellites or silicon chips, our ancestors were already master cartographers of meaning. These artifacts are far more than historical curiosities. They are the foundational chapters in humanity's oldest story, the story of trying to understand our place within everything. They teach us a humbling and powerful truth. Every map, from a clay tablet to a digital screen, is a subjective narrative. It is a story told by its creators, reflecting their deepest biases, their most cherished beliefs, and the very limits of their knowledge. The TO map, centered on Jerusalem, tells a story of divine order. The Cangnido map woven from Silk Road whispers tells a story of encyclopedic curiosity. Each one is a world seen through a specific cultural lens. In our current age of overwhelming digital precision, where a handheld device can show us the roof of our own house from space, this realization is profoundly important. Remembering the symbolic depth of early maps does more than humble us. It actively enriches our perception. It opens a door to appreciating the breathtaking diversity of human intelligence, the countless ways different cultures have devised to know their world. These maps are a testament to the fact that exploration does not begin with a ship or a spacecraft. True exploration begins in the quiet landscape of the mind, with the fundamental courage to imagine the unknown and then to represent it, to give it a form that others can share. That initial act of representation, whether painting a volcano on a wall or tying a knot in a cord, is the spark from which all understanding grows. So let these ancient guides inspire you to look at your own world with fresh eyes. Consider the street grid of your city, not just as a route to work, but as a modern iteration of the Peutingers table, a diagram of social and economic flow. Look up at the night sky and see not just points of light, but the living clockwork charted by the Nebra Sky Disc and the Dunhuang Star Map. Every landscape you walk through, from a city park to a mountain trail, is layered with invisible maps, stories of ownership, memory, and meaning waiting to be read. These 25 windows into prehistory remind us that we are all cartographers, constantly drawing and redrawing the maps of our own lives. We hope this journey through time has offered you a new lens on our shared past. We would love to hear which map resonated with you most. Share your thoughts in the comments below. For more deep dives into the mysteries that shape our world, be sure to subscribe. Thank you for exploring the world before recorded history with us.